Hi everyone, thanks for watching. You can support our work on our website ageoftruth.tv. And please like our videos, subscribe to our channels on YouTube, BitChute and Brighteon. And remember to hit the bell for notifications. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook. To be sure not to miss any of our shows, you can sign up for our newsletter on our website ageoftruth.tv.
Is it on video or off video? It's not on video, is it?
There we go. Yes, good to see you. I just had a little technical difficulties here, but now we have you through, Christopher. Good to see you. Yes, it's pre-recorded. We're not doing live, so we're pre-recording it here. Be respectful for that. So I think now that we have you through, I think I'll just turn on the camera for the studio right away, so you can say hi to Lucas, who's going to do the interview with you as well.
Bless your heart.
Just a second.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Age of Truth TV. I'm Lucas Alexander in Copenhagen, Denmark. And we have a special guest on the show, a British gentleman who now lives in America, who has been with us before. He is the founder of Global Enlightenment Project. He is an author of several books, a UFO researcher, and a holistic medical advisor. And he claims to be a Melchizedek Being, the ET beings that created the Akashic records. He has a lot of information to share, and it's a pleasure to welcome back on the show Reverend Dr. Christopher Macklin. Good evening from Copenhagen, Denmark, and welcome to our viewers on Age of Truth TV. Please like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell for notifications. We have a special guest with us today on this special date 999 that some people say is the most important date of the year 2025. It's a gentleman who's been with us before. He has quite a fascinating story to tell. In our first episode with him, we're talking a lot about his background and history. So please watch that show for all of that and a lot of his information about his work as a UFO researcher and a gentleman who can tap into the Akashic records. He also claims to be a Melchizedek being, and he can tell us what that is exactly. But it's a great pleasure to welcome him back here on the show. And we go to Branson, Missouri, and say good morning to Dr. Christopher Macklin joining us. Hi, Christopher, and welcome back.
Hi, Lucas. Bless your heart. Thanks for having me back. It's wonderful to be here. It was a great show last time.
So before we go into a lot of the fascinating information that you're going to be sharing with us today, please talk about this particular date. As I mentioned before, it's 999. This 999 portal is wide open. 2 days ago, on the 7th of September 2025, we had the blood moon. And on the 21st of September, we will have a solar eclipse. So this is a very interesting time period, also a month before and a month after this. It is time for manifestation and for endings, ending all of the stuff that no longer serves you. It's a rebirth in a way, getting rid of all the stuff that you don't want. A lot of people get a little bit emotional during this time. And it's also a time to manifest how you want your life to be in the future and right now. Raw truth is coming up to the surface. But now, what are your thoughts on the significance of this interesting moment of the year of 2025?
999. Well, in England, 999 is the police, but I don't know what to do. But what's interesting, I think it's right. I mean, these portal dates, especially dates in particular, multiples of three, of course, of Christ consciousness. So these portals are very powerful. And it's planetary alignment. It's all about that sort of thing. I mean, we have been going through a massive upgrade. The planet's had solar flares, solar storms. It's actually been crazy. Over the last kind of, I don't know, year or so, people have kind of been struggling a lot. Why is that? Because all this energy, as it, re-cleanses your body, and of course, the carbon structure is changing to crystalline slowly. And so you might be receiving a lot of issues, like, for example, intestinal issues, wondering what you even fancy to eat. And the answer is probably nothing. I'm seeing so many people, well, I don't know what to eat. And if I eat the wrong thing, it sits there like a brick, but our bodies are upgrading considerably. And I think, we need to take advantage of it. But even additional to that, this energy does bring deep-seated emotion up. And I'm seeing people, I thought I dealt with that. And up this emotion comes very deep-seated and cleansing that. It's a great time, but it's also a difficult time as well. A lot of people are struggling because, of course, on the planet, there's massive changes happening and people have ingested emotion with that. So the collective emotion is pretty significantly, what do you call it? I don't like the word dark. It's stressful. There's a stress on the planet of which way are we going, what's happening. And people are getting really affected by that and don't know what to do with it, bless them. I just feel as though I'm living, time sped up, of course, because time, of course, is not linear. And the timelines, we're actually living on dying timelines at the moment, which are going to change. So when the transition happens, it's going to be amazing. How is the planet going to look? I personally think very differently than what it looks now. It's going to be a massive change.
Yes, definitely. And also, but it's numerology is extremely significant and it can be used in a good way and certainly also in a bad way. And we know that they have used it for bad. I mean, the top rulers behind the scenes and also those mystics and occultists, they've been using numbers for centuries or maybe always actually, and the Freemasons use it as well in sacred geometry and gematria. But it certainly can be used in a spiritual way, and that is also what we're seeing right now, because we can activate something within a spark within, something on a soul level that can transcend or level, our consciousness can grow from here, if you know what I mean. And this is, I mean, there's a certain significance, and we can feel it also in the energy at the moment, right? But do you think that this date or this era or time period has certain significance, and how do you think people can use it for the best of their, I mean, in the best possible way?
I think, what you got to do is allow yourself to grieve what this world was before, because things come up, people often say, now, tell me, there must be something that's not manipulated. I'm going, everything is. Trying to think of one thing. Well, there's nothing. Everything. Food, water, taxes, monetary system, everything.
The
We're working
whole
on a
thing
debt
is just
system.
one big
Everything.
major manipulation, right?
I'm looking outside and there's nothing actually. Everything's been manipulated. So this big transition is huge, and I think, people get tied to money a lot and all this sort of thing. And I'm not interested in money at all. I don't count beans. I just let go of everything and just stay. I think the best way to transition this at the moment is to start having some peace within yourself, getting to know yourself, getting your vibration up, start loving yourself. 'Cause so many people, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. They're busy for the sake of being busy, doing busy, but what they're not doing is taking a step back and really thinking about, what do I want to do in the future? For me, everyone's got a gift and everyone's got either if you're a starseed, you've got a starseed family, or if you're a normal human being, have a human experience, you still have angelic beings to support you. So start talking to them. When I went bankrupt in 2007, I always remember I was at the south of England, gone bankrupt, marriage collapsed, everything else, and I was sitting in a car, living out of it almost. It was a Volkswagen Polo, bawling my eyes out, thinking, no one cares. And I sat there for hours. And in the end, I realised, okay, one last chance, I'll phone my brother. So I phoned my brother. He was working in The Hague and for Royal Dutch Shell. And he said, I'm in a meeting. I'll phone you back in about half an hour. And, 2 months went and nothing. So I realised, one of the biggest things I realised is that the angelic beings off planet are there for you 24/7. I learned last year, I was born as a Melchizedek being, and, my body's a bit different. And they found that out last year when I was talking a lot about the satanic instruments within, certain organizations. Let's not mention them because they get a little upset when we do. But the satanic, really satanic things. And I was talking about that. And I suddenly got hit with a low frequency energy weapon. And I started to get really out of breath. And, oh my God, I got really sick. And I talked to them because that beings. Anyway, I went for a test and my heart valve was completely toast. That what they've done is melted two cusps together with this low frequency heart weapon. I was getting worse and worse. And I talked to Mother Mary, who's one of the Melchizedek beings, and she actually appeared to me at 1 o'clock in the morning. She said, do you want to stay or go? And I said, silly question, you want to stay? She goes, well, yeah, I think you know me better than that. So, okay, so what was interesting is my heart's very big. It's the size of a volleyball. It's not, normally it's the size of a grapefruit. So anyway, went into hospital, they scanned it. Wow, it's huge, The valve was huge and so were the arteries. So he goes, well, it's not heart failure. Your heart's great. It's just the valve is bigger than the ones we got off the shelf. So you had to figure out how to, put a valve in. So he reduced the hole, figured it all out, got open heart surgery because they couldn't do TAVR. And it took me a while to, heal from that. And I asked Mother Mary, I said, can we fix it ourselves? She said, we don't have the time. You've got probably 4 to 6 weeks to live. And I thought, okay, let's just do it. So we did it. And here I am.
This was actually, well, after we had our first conversation, right?
It was, yeah.
I remember that suddenly I saw that you were ill and that you had to go through all of this, but luckily you look great now. When you say that you talked to Mother Mary, what exactly do you mean by that? And you talk about, and I guess we talked about this in the first show, but please talk about the thing that you claim that you are, see if I can say it right, Melchizedek Being, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah. The Melchizedek beings is a certain lineage, like you've got Arcturians, Lemurian, Atlanteans, Andromedans, Lyrans, and all these different beings are in different levels. The Melchizedek beings are from the ultimate dimension, and I was brought here basically just to help on the planet, like we all are. We're all doing our best. But Mother Mary is one of the Melchizedek beings. She's the mother of the Melchizedek beings down here. Currently, there were 5 beings here, from that area, and so.
And you know that she's one of those beings. You know that because of what? How do you know?
Well, A, because I'm a contact, and B, because of my visions. And, I discovered all this many, many years ago when I was actually in Belize. And I went to a place called Chantovich, which is a Mayan temple. Now, people think the Mayans are really kind of evil. They're not really. It's just they're portrayed in a different way. As we know, history is really not the proper history of the world, but that's another story. But I was on top of this Mayan temple, and it blew me wide open. Whoa, and I was having visions and all this, and then I went back to the hotel, and they produced like a third dimensional. It was almost like a TV in the room, a third dimensional holographic image of my past lives for the last 4,000 years. And I was watching it. Wow, okay. Well, okay, and from that information, I realized what I'm meant to be doing here now, and that's doing healing for people, supporting them, and I dedicate my life to it, and of course, last year was the 290th time they've tried to take me out. Now, I think it's the last one. I hope it's the last one.
The 219th time they've been trying to take you out.
Have 290. 290, yeah.
290. Oh my God. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Why not 286? Or did you count all of them?
Well, it's 289 before this event last year. So it's kind of, well, I've just looked at them. I mean, I forget. There's been so many incidences while they tried to take me out. You know, for example, 2 days after I was born, I had 8 strokes. They attacked me then, hospital for a year. Then when I was 4, burnt my back. Then I broke my leg, and then different things happened. When I was in India, I remember the big ones was I was actually went to see the Dalai Lama. I never saw him, and I know why, but you know, that's another story. But I wasn't meant to see him and never will. But what was interesting is I thought, you know, here you go. Oh, let's go see the Dalai Lama. No, it didn't happen, but that's okay. On my way back, you know, I had a great time there. I loved a lot of the people there, just amazing people. But I was in the North Tibetan camp, and I was sitting there one day, and they said, you need to change your ticket. What? You need to change your ticket. Why? Just change your ticket. Okay. And at that time, I had absolutely virtually no money whatsoever. And so I had to sort of phone somebody, borrow £70, which is nothing like $80, $90, change the ticket. The day the plane was supposed to go off, it went to the end of the runway, blew up and killed everyone on board. And I thought, wow. So, you know, these things are real. People think, oh, you're making stories up. I've been there, got the T-shirt on all this. And it's interesting because they don't want you to do the work. You know, they don't want you to be part of, you know, this ascension process. And the more people they can take out, they're hoping that it's not going to happen, but it is going to happen, you know, so, and it's happening, of course.
Wow, that's very fascinating. But you are quite a resilient man, and we hope to have you for many, many, many years still to come, Christopher.
Well, Lucas, sometimes I pinch myself. Am I still here? Oh yeah, that hurts. But I love being here. I love helping people. You know, we do healings, you know, obviously all the time. My main thing is healing people because I think the trauma just by being on this planet is traumatic in itself. Never mind what you can go through with the. I mean, a lot of people choose their parents because it gives you an extreme experience to actually blow you open. And, you know, and people say, why are my parents? I mean, why did this happen? Or something. And it's great for experience. I look back and I thank my parents, you know, I thank my father for being crabby all these years because, you know, and not believing in me and, you know, berating me because it's made me into the person I am today. And I think that's really important.
So, your father, we talked about him the last time also. You went through a lot with your father, who was not very supportive, but he was still alive, actually, when we spoke the last time, I believe. Is he still around?
He is, yeah. He's become not very well because he's ingested some stuff that you really shouldn't have ingested. So he's not very well now, and he's starting to decline. Hasn't asked for my help, and so sadly I can't do much. But he's still, yeah, he's 91, and he actually had I would say, an awakening last year when I got really sick. He's actually been very different. He's been more like a love fest, you know. I'm going, wow, is this you, Dad? You know, I don't recognize you. Bless his heart. He's doing his best, you know, and I'm pleased for that. I'm pleased for him, you know, I think.
But that's really amazing because people can change, and also when certain things happen, you know, just the fact that you're experiencing that and you're going in that direction, and it actually happens while he's still here and while you are still here, that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and it balances the karma we had, you know. Do I have any karma? I don't think I did with that. And I actually don't believe in karma anyway. I think when you create something, you know, say you go and rob a bank, you go, oh my God, I might get caught, might get caught. You manifest, so you're going to get caught. And so you've got karma with it, and so you get caught. You know, to me, I think karma's created by doing something wrong and not forgiving yourself or asking for forgiveness from God or the people who you did wrong to. And I think you can rebalance that karma, you know. So, but yeah, I think he's redeemed himself, and I'm very pleased for him, you know. So,
I think the energy is very good. Like energetically, this is an important thing for you to make up with him, or I mean, to still be able to sort of have a good connection at the end, right?
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's good for him is because he can go with peace, knowing that, yeah, he's rebalanced himself and he can move on, you know. So yeah, absolutely. That's important for anyone, actually, I think, you know. Don't ever judge people. Always forgive them. It doesn't matter how bad they've been in your life. And believe you me, how such crazy things happen. But I've always forgiven people. And, it's actually having the wisdom beyond forgiveness to realize actually, because they're part in your life and they help mold you into the amazing person you are today. Without them, you can imagine without them, and I didn't have aberration from my father and put me down all the time, I would probably be a lot weaker, but I'm very strong, but still loving. I still got massive empathy for people, and you get that balance. It's important.
It's very important. And I think this is very like cathartic time at the moment. I think a lot of people are experiencing things like endings and having some closure and new beginnings and things they maybe problems they didn't think they could solve. Those things are being solved at the moment, and also, but of course, if you're not awake, then you can be facing a lot of turmoil. But you were talking about something which I found very interesting. You were talking about Mother Mary and saying that she's also a Melchizedek being, which you know because you're speaking to these beings. But what about Mary Magdalene, for example? It's so interesting because there's this recent newfound growing interest in Mary Magdalene and the significance of who she might have been historically, or if she wasn't actually a real woman walking this earth, but a symbolic figure or a symbolism for the Holy Grail or the female womb, the vagina.
Oh, that, yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, it's very interesting. There has been a lot of uptake with Mary Magdalene, and actually she wasn't a prostitute or anything. I think she struggled a lot, and I know she was born in royalty, and it was a very different story. The Magdalene sections are left out of the Bible, and they're very different than what she was described. They try to put her down, but she is also a Melchizedek being, and she's been born on this planet. She's one of the 5 Melchizedek beings here.
So you do believe she was a woman walking this earth, but I mean, a lot of people do say that she is it is symbolic for the Holy Grail or the female womb.
It is, yeah. Magdalene was, but of course, the story of Jesus isn't quite what people think. I mean, he was put on the cross. Yes. Did he die on the cross? No. Why is that? Because the Romans had believed that after 3 days your soul leaves your body, and so what they did is Magdalene and a couple of the disciples did a deal with basically the centurions that they could take his body. I mean, he was pretty sick, but he wasn't dead, and so they took him off and they went abroad to France, and they said, yeah, okay, we'll get paid off, but you need to get him away from this area. So they took him to a place called Taro, which actually doesn't exist now, a small town in France, and they created the first tarot cards, which is really interesting, and which are energetic cards they created between Jesus, Mary, and they had children, things like that. So it's a very different teaching, and of course everything's hijacked. All the teachings, Buddha's teachings are hijacked, everything, because they want to enslave you. It's like, for example, and people aren't going to like this analogy, but I'm going to say it if it's okay. It's talking about the communion, So you go for communion in the church and you're drinking the blood of Christ and eating his flesh. And now, does that sound real? No, it's a satanic ritual. So what they're doing is introducing a satanic ritual into the Bible, and they've left a lot of the chapters out, like Magdalene and like Jesus, a lot of Jesus' teachings, so that you become more powerless victim. You've got to follow the church and rely on the church to talk to God, when we all have the ability to talk directly to God. And I think that's one of the misrepresentations of most religions.
But don't you think a lot of those religious figures and personalities and people that were in the Holy Scriptures, that they are symbolism for something else? Do you really think that they were like real beings? Not that people were not put on the cross, because they were at that time. But I mean, it could be a symbolic symbolism for something that people could not have understood had it not been like personified, like God, the depiction of God as an old man with a long great beard, a gray beard sitting on a cloud, and all of that, which we know is not true unless you, of course, believe that. But I mean, Jesus could have been a symbolism for something else, and a lot of people also say that Jesus is Buddha, Jesus is Muhammad, Jesus is all of those important figures in different religions because it's all the same.
Yeah, you've got Muhammad, Babaji, you've got Enoch, you've got Jesus the Christ. Who have missed out?
Yeah, but Babaji was a real man in India.
Yeah, but that was the Christ soul. It's the same soul, different time.
Yeah, he died in the 80s.
So, yeah. So what's happened is that soul's come back many times. The thing is about this, Lucas, is interesting, is for the last 4,000 years, because this planet has changed so much, what's happening is we always knew that we'd have to train for right now. This is it. This is probably the biggest transition you'll ever have on this planet. And so what's happened is many of the people like, John the Baptist, different people like Mother Mary, Magdalene, myself. I won't tell you who I am because it doesn't really matter. But many of these people have come back to actually experience at different times so they could train for the now because it's changed so much. And I think you need, it's great looking at a TV screen and saying, oh, yeah, that's the way the planet is now. But actually experiencing it and getting that experience of how to navigate it is very important. And we all come down to train for the now. And I think because it's so dark, being able to be on this planet and stay alive is just incredible. Because some people say to me, well, I've got big things to do. I said, look, just being on this planet is big, and staying alive and staying positive. You're doing amazing. If you can stay balanced in this lifetime, is everyone jumping up and down and saying, God, this planet's amazing? Most people be lying, say they are, because they're not. It's tough, but I love it. I love the challenge. And I think, I've heard people say, well, I'm bored on this planet. How could you be bored on this planet? The place is nuts, and I love it. So, being on here, it's a real education, but this is the now. And we've been training for this for up to the last 4,000 years. And that's why, different souls have come back as different people to train for right now. And now is it, and I think, who cares who you were in the past? It doesn't matter. It's actually what you do now, to me, that's so important, because this is a time of transition. And, I'm doing my best. I mean, one of my biggest projects, of course, is the Pyramid Project. What's that? Well, the Arcturians are building pyramids in the 12th dimension. My job is to get the land, about 100,000 acres, and place pyramids here at particular places. It'll be in a golden curve, but the biggest pyramid will be on top of a ley line juncture where it'll inject a lot of actual energy into the planet. So it'll blur out all the satanic symbology along the way. And that's going to really help the planet transition. Is it the only project? Of course not, but it's a big project. And I mean, one is like 999.999 feet tall, 666.66 feet tall, 333.33 feet tall, huge pyramids. How do they get down here? Well, they use their technology of time-space switching and anti-gravitation, everything else, and the Arcturians are building them in the 12th dimension. So they're underway.
But you said that you were going to build one or build several, or what? Are you do you mean like physically, or are you talking metaphysically, or are you talking about the
No, they're going to be physical. Yeah, the Arcturians are building the pyramids. It's my job to get the project underway and buy the land, 100,000 acres, and create an infrastructure so when they come down, people can come and see them.
And can you actually do that? Are you going to do that? Are you able to do that? Can you financially do it?
Financially, not now, but I've got people who are working with us who actually created the funds as we speak. So, I mean, Lucas, it's way out of our league. I mean, we're talking about probably $200 billion here. It's like,
oh my God, how are you going to raise that much? That sounds incredible. And you want to build these like giant pyramids, or as big as you just said. I don't know exactly how big that will be compared to the ones in Egypt.
Yeah. Basically, the biggest thing is to get ether energy in and inject it into the planet so that the planet really raises in vibration. Yes, there are other things like solar flares, everything else, but this is really going to help And it's also going to help people get back to telepathy, because you need that energy. You need that God energy to be able to use telepathy. So our mobile phones will kind of be redundant. But I've known about this for a long time, but they're being built by the Arcturians. My job is they will bring them down. They're free of charge. They're for humanity. They're not for me, per se. They're for all the people on this planet. So when they arrive, it's going to be quite a thing, because they'll just appear overnight, and
So
on the
the
golden
pyramids
curve.
are gonna appear overnight, or are you talking about the ones that the Arcturians are supposedly building, or that you're claiming that they are building, or how are they building them? They're
Correct, yeah.
just like land in your backyard, or
Well, we're going to actually buy 100 acres in a particular place. I can't say because, of course, the deep state and the people who don't want us to succeed will go buy the land all around it. But it will be placed on 100,000 acres, and an infrastructure will be created. So, because imagine those pyramids just appearing overnight. It'll be on national news. Everyone wants to come and see them. I want to come and see them. So you need an infrastructure to be able to manage that amount of people. So
so
it's
why
my
so
job
why
to
do
do
you
that.
need $200 billion, or how much you just said it would cost if the Arcturians are just gonna land those pyramids in that land that you're
Because
gonna buy?
Well, you need to build an infrastructure. It's going to be like a small city. You need places for people to stay. You need restaurant systems. You need its own farm. There's so many different things. You're really building a small city, but it's going to be eclectic. But they believe it'll cost about $200 billion. And, who knows, but we'll build as much of it as we can. And I think it's an exciting project.
And you're not going to have somebody build the pyramids physically, done by humans then?
No, it's done off planet because they have to be so. We don't have the technology to build that level of pyramid. We
And
just
you
don't have the
actually think
technology.
that this could be a real thing, that this could come into fruition, and people around the world would be able to see this? And
Oh
what
yeah,
what would you say? What would you say, that these were built by the Arcturians and ET rays from off planet? Or, I mean, we haven't gotten that far, have we?
no, I think we just say they've been built by some really talented people, and let's park it there and not tell them the whole story because people aren't ready for it. I mean, the Arcturians
They'll
are the
be
12th
asking
dimension.
questions. How did you build them? If you could actually see them physically, and they're
Oh, you
going to
can see them
ask you.
physically.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, people are very interested in how they built the pyramids in Egypt and in Peru, or wherever you have them. So I mean, what would you say to that? People would certainly be interested in if you were able to have large pyramids in that piece of
Oh
land.
yeah, they're going to be different. I mean, the thing about the Giza pyramids, I mean, they were built by other races, not us. But what's interesting is that they're built of sandstone. So if you look at sandstone, it absorbs water. So what you've got is like walls of water, right around it, because it used to have a moat. And so water vibrates at the same frequency as crystal, same frequency as gold. So when they were actually functional, they were very, very powerful energetic structures. And of course, they did harness it for electricity and stuff as well. And then, of course, it's changed. They've also moved off the ley line, so they're not as effective anymore. They're still in alignment per se, but they also took the capstones off, which were gold, and there was a gold capstone, and then also a Merkaba, which is like 7 feet. And the Merkaba, which is crystal, of course, would really power, the energy right to the esophagus, and you could actually get healing in there. I mean, the ones we're building, you can travel off planet. It's they're going to be made of moldavite, and there's actually not enough moldavite on this planet to be able to build them. So,
Some people also suggest that the pyramids in Giza were built by people back then, maybe with special technology, maybe alien technology, but also with the power of the mind, the power of intention, before our pineal gland were calcified, and we could no longer use the power of the mind, which we originally could possibly, they say also. What are your thoughts on that? That you could move objects by
oh
thinking
yeah, you
about
can
how
move
you want.
object. The problem is actually cutting them and so concisely. Didn't have the technology then, but certainly we can move objects. I mean, I've moved objects before. It's more difficult now, I think, because the planet is the vibration's lowering. It's getting towards the darkness before the dawn, and I think it's very difficult to do anything right now because we're a suppressed planet. But eventually, once it turns around and the whole energy gets higher, I mean, the planet's energy getting higher. It's just the people on it struggling because they're trying to keep up with the transition of our bodies because we're going from carbon to crystalline structure. And so there's a lot of things changing, like, for example, eating. I work on about 3,000 people a week, and nobody knows what to eat. What do I fancy eating? Oh, nothing. No one wants to eat anything. My portions, I mean, I'm 6'5", and I hardly eat anything, because you don't need to anymore. Your body's changing. So we are changing rapidly, but there's a lot of emotion and trauma coming up.
So what do you think we should eat, actually? Because that is a big issue, and it's very polluted, it's very confusing, because nobody really knows. I mean, everybody has the perfect diet. Some people say, eat just meat. And some people, a lot of people now say, eat just vegetables and be a vegan and all of that. That's very popular. It's like a political narrative right now, and they're like putting it on you now and almost forcing you to not eat meat. And then a lot of people talk about just drinking water, and there's a lot of it's very very confusing, and everybody can lose weight if they use one diet or the other.
The problem with plants is that we're not built to eat plants, and the CIA operative, some years ago was like, you got to go vegan. Well, if you look at people who go vegan, they start to look pretty sick after a year or two, and start to look very pasty, and because their bodies aren't getting the proper nutrition, the fatty acids in meat, full stop. Now, if you think about an animal, they eat, grass and, vegetables, all these things. How many stomachs they have? Well, they have more than one. And that's because they can digest this stuff. It then gets transferred to the meat. So when you eat the meat, you're getting your nutrients instead of from plants, from that meat, The problem, of course, is that the feed they give the animals now, everything's been hijacked. So, what do you eat? And the answer is, I think what you have to eat is what you really feel like that day, and I always wait two hours before a meal and think, what do we really fancy for dinner? And now we don't want that. We don't fancy a steak, don't fancy a burger, and it might just be like egg on toast. Yeah, that would hit the spot, and you eat it and it hits the spot. Now, if you eat that tomorrow, it won't hit the spot. It'll sit there like a brick. So my advice to everyone who's struggling to know what to eat is just think of all the different things, what would really hit the spot. Like, wow, I really fancy that, because your body's craving.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's very good for you, right? Or healthy or full of nutrition,
No, it doesn't. But what it means is at least you're eating something, because, people are struggling. And if you eat the wrong thing, you can find you get indigestion, acid reflux and things like that, which is not good for you either. I think it's very difficult at the moment. So my advice is just eat, whatever it is, as long as you're getting some nutrients for now, things are going to change. And I think, the meat will go back to the way it should. Animals will be taken care of and eat the way they should. I think, plants, I mean, I don't believe, and, it's a CIA operative to make people sick.
And now they're doing like a war against cows, especially here in Scandinavia, certainly. Maybe, I don't know how it's like there in America right now, but they have like a total war against cows and say that, they cause the CO2 thing, the climate agenda and all of that. And now the meat here in this part of the world is extremely expensive.
Well, again, it's just a psyop. I mean, the cows have been passive women for thousands of years. All animals have, And, I mean, it's just, and, is the global warming happening? Well, I'm not seeing it. Yeah, it's warm, but it's not like excessively warm. They're just trying to say, oh my God, this summer's
always warm.
It's not. It was always warm in the summer. And it's freezing here in the winter, let me tell you. And so, they reckon there's no change, first of all, they said, oh, the world's going to cool off. It's global cooling, and then it's global warming. I know it's climate change because they don't know what's going to happen. So that, the climate's changing.
Well, the Earth is going through
cycles.
Changes, right? the Earth is going through natural changes and climate, sometimes it's warmer and sometimes it's a little bit cooler, but it's not it's nothing to do with the climate change agenda, which is an absolute hoax, right?
Absolutely. The whole thing's nonsense. So is the CIA eating vegan nonsense, So yeah, I think meat diets are actually better for you because, whatever animal, you're eating has eaten the vegetation. It's broken it down through several stomachs, like cows have 4 stomachs. And therefore, the nutrients are in the meat, So I think that's why we're lacking so many nutrients nowadays, because people, if you eat vegetation, you're going to get oxalates because your body's not breaking that vegetation down. And oxalates are, toxic for you. And I'm seeing that a lot in people at the moment. So very interesting.
They're also shooting these toxins into the cows and into other animals, this bioweapon and all of that, in order to get people also to not be too healthy from eating that as well. So that's
Absolutely.
also a terrible thing. But let's hope. I mean, I think the most important thing probably to meat eaters also watching this is the significance of the animals having a good life and living a good life while they're here, and that's very important, huh?
Well, we do have a prayer on the website, which, basically, the prayer is basically you ground yourself. You say, I am of God, I ground myself here. Dear God, I command you, optimize the vibration of food, bless the souls of the animals and the plants that have allowed my body nutrition. And why, thank you, God. It rebalances the karma, because you're honoring that cow for its meat. And it's interesting because a Native American area in Pennsylvania got hold of this prayer, and the medicine man phoned me. He said, would you mind if I use your prayer? I said, it would be an honor. He goes, well, I'm going to translate it for the Native Americans here. And he did. And he put it over his whole area. And they're all saying it because, of course, they have these ceremonies. If they kill a cow, they have ceremonies to bless it. And I think that's really important, instead of just eating some meat and not worrying about what life the cow has had, at least you can bless it and thank it for the blessing of the food. I think it's very, very important.
Very, yes, certainly. So talk about mental training and the importance of deprogramming your mind and patterns and habits and the reprogramming of your mind in a good, positive way. How can this possibly be done successfully, do you think? Because you work with people.
Yeah, well, in the general healings, we have a method to get rid of layers of emotion. I mean, we know that emotion builds up around the heart, like layers and layers. The problem is that starseed people, and there's probably less than 1% of the planet are starseed people, but because they're so empathic, they ingest emotion 20, 50 times bigger than the average human being because they're just so empathic. And so they take everything personally. But even so, so many people are ingesting, I don't know, 100, 150,000 layers of emotion. It's way too much for any, human being or starseed here. And so what the Melchizedek beings do, psychic surgery-wise, those 100-odd thousand layers, they go within, they look for your biggest emotion affecting you right now, and they'll pull that energy out. Next biggest. So the reason why we can do a lot of emotional releases is because once you've pulled the energy out, you're not feeling the full force of that energy. What you're going to do is you're going to get a reaction for the residual of maybe those 81 releases, which is not as bad. So that's one method. The other thing about trauma, and I've worked a lot with trauma with people, is going back. You've got to go back on that timeline because all the traumas come into this timeline and make you feel negative. So what you've got to do is go back on that timeline to when that event happened. And, and I run it through people's minds. All right, run it through your mind. What happened? Right, we're going to wind back. And what we're going to do is change the outcome. So whatever outcome you want, like the police just turned up or something happened. So they run through it again and say, yeah, we signaled the police, they arrived, they were arrested, they were put in jail. And so the whole event has changed. And that means in that past timeline, it's changing the energy which comes to the now. So you've processed that emotion. And I think that's very important. We've got many different ways of helping people with emotion because trauma is the biggest thing that's really affecting people. And it can make people narcissistic because they get very reactive. If you poke any buttons, on them, they get very reactive. And I'm seeing that a lot in people. I had a client, she went out, with 6 friends and they were just having a drink and everything else. And she told this lady a truth, whatever it was. And It's like, well, how dare you? I demand an apology immediately. And she said, well, I'm not going to apologize for the truth. How dare you? And people are so reactive. It's incredible. Like, it's the truth, And I mean, I always tell people the truth. And if they don't like it, well, never mind. It's okay. Then and that's why I think living on this planet in a very tranquil way, you have to set boundaries. I always love people. I abide my life by Jesus' teachings. Love people, take care of them, do your best for people, service to others, all this sort of thing. Don't judge people, and I abide my life by that. But I think some people are just impossible, and you're never going to get anywhere with them. So what you got to do is just love them, but over there, and it's okay. You can have boundaries. You can love that person from a distance, and I think that's very important.
Love them from a distance. That you certainly have to do that with certain people. That's the truth. But I mean, mental training is very important now to change your patterns and your habits in order to change your life, right? That is the law of attraction, the law of manifestation, deprogramming from your old mind control and then reprogramming yourself with a good kind of mind control. But how can that possibly be done? We know about the silver method, and lots of people have been talking about this, but I mean, it's something that can be done through meditation or repetition, a good kind of repetition, not
Yeah,
indoctrination in
no.
of course.
I mean, I think there's a few things with this. To me, it's all about going back to starting off with gratitude. Instead of I don't have, look at the stuff, everything you do have. I mean, Lucas. I've been without a plate of food for 21 days, 7 days, 15 days through the time I was bankrupt, and I look back at what a blessing, because without that, I wouldn't have really learned what just a plate of food, the blessing of that is. And so every day now, I always thank God for it. I thank God for everything I've got. And to me, gratitude is a way of life. It's not just getting a gratitude stone. Right, God, you got 5 minutes. So I'm grateful for my wife, my car. Oh, we're done. It doesn't work like that. It's a way of being. But I think when you get into that gratitude, it's also you get into a place of surrender where, God's got your back. I mean, look, I started this ministry in 2010, and here we are in 2025. It's very successful. Has the turnover gone down a bit? Well, yeah, over the last couple of years. So what? We just rebalance it, but it's done very well. And it's because I don't even worry about money. All I do is focus on the healing.
And you call it, I'm sorry to jump in here, Christopher, but you call it a ministry. And I think we talked about that in our first episode. But please address when you say God, because you're not a Christian, right? So, I mean, you're not necessarily that. But how do you describe yourself? What is God to you? And why do you call it a ministry?
Well, it's interesting. So the God realm, I define God as God, goddess, prime creator of all that is. So my belief is God's everywhere, in everything, and everybody. Now, I called it a ministry because people connect with the name ministry, but the name of the ministry is Christopher Macklin Ministries Incorporated, and it's a 501c3. But we changed the name, and this may sound crazy, but in the state of Missouri, they call it a fictitious name. And I think that's a strange name. And what it is a registered name that could be under the ministry as a project of the ministry. So we call it the Global Enlightenment Project. But basically, the ministry is just the 501c3 bit. And that's why I called it a ministry, not for anything. But
and also because a ministry is like an organization, right? So it can be, it's organized within the matrix, within the system, and can be used that way, right?
Yeah, that's why it's a third dimensional world. Like, there's the ministry, and here's us up here doing something else. But unfortunately, the money and the counting, everything has got to flow in a third dimensional way. You can't get away from that. Well, hopefully we will, and very quickly. But no, I mean, I define God as God, goddess, prime creator, all it is. It's a well-balanced, I think, definition of, all it is, really, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. So because you talk a lot about star beings and star seeds, but also indigo children and crystal children, like incarnating on Earth, or in fact come to Earth for the first time, maybe. But why and for what purpose, and who's bringing them here, and where did they originate from?
Well, a lot of these Indigo children, Gen Z, whatever you want to call them. I mean, I was brought here, I was spliced here at birth. I don't really know that. So there was enough Melchizedek DNA, 84%, put in my body to be able to hold the soul. Now, some races you need that, like Arcturians. Some races you don't. It depends. Like Palladian, you can get a normal Palladian soul. So these people are born as starseed people. What does that mean? I mean, I don't know what they were thinking, but they volunteered to come down here. So, God said, look, I want volunteers. Everyone's going, oh, I'll come,
But when God said, okay, you're volunteering, so I'm allowing you to go to Earth to do what? But I mean, this is like a condensation, but then you're making God human or personifying God.
Well, I'm talking about all the off-planet beings, the God beings, basically. So each race, like the Palladians, Arcturians, they said, look, we need volunteers. Lumerians, Andromedans, Advantarians, Lyrans. There's many races who have come down here, and they've had to figure out, well, some need, to be spliced in. So your mother was abducted or whatever, spliced in at birth, you come down, and basically your soul can then live in that body because there's enough light body in it. So basically these people with their races, I call it God, but it's the races of the off-planet angelic beings, the one who've reached unconditional love. That's what an angelic being is. So basically what's happened is that they've volunteered to come down here. Now, they show them a little bit about, well, there's entities down here, you have to learn those. And of course, when you come down here, you're closed off, so you forget what's happened. So you've got to learn how to navigate this planet, how to remove entities, how to navigate all the things that are going on, the emotional issues, the laws, many things, and it's a lot, And why did they come down here? Well, there's a massive rule, and we're talking about Enoch, which was the Christ soul. And or one of the times the Christ soul. Enoch talked about the universal laws, and one of them is free will. You're not allowed to interfere with that. So if things are going really south here, how do you actually get over that? Well, what you do is you put some starseeds down here that are part human, so it gets over that rule. It's up to the starseeds then, with their closed off knowledge, to learn and then to ask for help off planet. Because most people say, well, my bed's broke, something's broke, I don't have. If you turn that around and say, back up, let's turn it into positivity.
So they're not allowed to interfere because the Galactic Federation says so, or what? And I mean, we really could use some help down here. So it's like a thing saying, oh, they're not allowed to interfere. So it's like a good excuse for nothing happens, and it's only getting worse,
Well, the thing is, that's the reason why they put the starseeds down. Now, B, the collective. If the collective goes over 80%, like, for example, in the 1980s, nobody wanted nuclear war, and everyone was frightened to death because we almost had nuclear war. We got to about, I think it was 82 or 83% of people on the planet do not want nuclear war. And that was enough to allow the Arcturians and the Federation to actually interfere and stop it because the collective didn't want it. Now, other things that need working on, like deep state and all this sort of thing, people don't even understand how big this thing is. And so what they've done is put starseeds down here who are very evolved. Starseed people are evolved. Ancient Palladians, ancient Arcturians, Melchizedek, all these things. So they've been brought down here to get over the fact that once they realize we need help, they can help if they're asked when somebody is down here, but they can't help and just interfere unless the collective is over 80%, which is not, because a lot of people are asleep. So that's why they put the starseeds down here. So once they evolved, and of course, starseeds are attacked relentlessly, and that's why a lot of them, some of them don't make it, in terms of they're just so numbed down, they're on antidepressants and things like this, because they really struggle being on this planet because it's not their planet. I mean, this is not my planet, I look at it and say, I love the planet, but bless her heart, but the behavior on it's terrible and it needs changing. George Carlin, I always remember him He said, save the planet, and I won't put the F words. Save the planet. The planet's doing great. It's the people on it. And then he said at the end, she could spit us off like a bad dose of fleas. And then in one of the interviews, you were saying, isn't it amazing if humanity was wiped out, all there'd be is a little bit of styrofoam here and there left, plastic. And I thought that was hilarious because it's true, she can spit us off. And I think, it's up to us to change the behavior. And we're working on it. All you can do is do your best. I mean, I do all these healings. You never know. Someone said to me, you never know. And it was actually Mother Mary, because I talked to her quite a lot. She said, you never know how much change you're making in the world just by doing what you're doing. And you don't, because people tell people. And I think, I love service to others. If I wasn't doing this, would I want to be here? I've got no point in being here. I'm here for a purpose. You're here for a purpose. We're all starseed people shedding our love and our light out,
So the star seeds are not from this realm. They are souls from another realm, and they are here for the first time, or what? And what's the difference between star seeds, crystal children, and indigo children?
Well, crystal children, indigo children, these are starseed people. They've agreed to come down. What's interesting is that the latest kind of crystal children, indigo children, people who have been born within the last 20, 25 years have been born with the full knowledge. They haven't blocked the knowledge off. And I think that's difficult because, a lot of them I talk to, what happens is that they're born here and what the heck is this? And they're so shocked. They can't function at all. They can't get a job. They don't mix with people. I mean, I can function, but I'm not dissimilar. I don't go out amongst a lot of people. I actually keep to myself. I find it difficult with the ingestion of bioweaponry and things. Being out amongst people means you get pretty dizzy because it's connecting to your biofield. It's affecting you. And so I tend to isolate a lot.
Don't you think you can shield yourself from that if there is a possibility that you could be affected by that energy of the whatever bioweapon they injected themselves with? I mean, some people do say that we can feel that, and some people also say, no, it does not affect your field because you chose something else. But some people say it's a fear thing.
No, I think you can block it out. But I think the problem is if you get too near people, and there's one thing we've tested, we've tested our prayer, like the 27 East-Out Merkabah field prayer, it works. But if you go and hug somebody with a bioweapon in them, you're going to get sick and you're going to get rashes and all sorts of things. And I've tried this and I've been there myself.
Some of us do that all the time with people that we know in our close sphere even, or just people around us, or those of us who are around a lot of people all the time. And we don't have that problem. I mean, like getting a rash or something,
Yeah, but you're still ingesting it and it affects people's bodies in different ways. I mean, I've seen it a lot. I mean, we work with like 3,000 people and I've had people go out. I mean, I remember when I was in 2 hours and I hugged about 3 or 4 people. And what happened is within, I would say, an hour, I had a massive rash all down the side of my body. I'm hypersensitive, so it just depends. It depends on your sensitivity and how your immune takes care of business. Everyone's different, but it definitely you get shedding.
But could it be because you were fearful that you might get something like shedding and all these things that they've been talking about? Because the law of attraction is also about, getting the things you don't want. So that's also a possibility. We see that a lot in people. Every time they think about something they don't want or they fear, then that's going to attack them.
No, I agree. I mean, I have no fear of anything, to be honest. I mean, Lucas, they've tried to get rid of me so many times. I don't fear death, I go through the thing. I don't worry about hugging people. If I get a rash, I take care of it. But, there's definitely shedding going on. And, the best way is like with the prayer. I know that, if you do this prayer, the 27 East Merkabah field prayer, we've checked it with microbiologists, in California where they've gone around for a day and got nothing. And other ones have gone around and definitely got some effect of the shedding. It does shed,
we really know that for sure. Do we
Oh
really
yeah,
know that?
yeah. The weaponry that gets inside the cells. I mean, people shed how many cells a day? Loads. And if you go near within 2 feet of somebody, you are going to ingest through your nose, breathe it in through your lungs, or it sinks through the skin. I mean, I've seen this stuff under microscopes. It's 10 to the -9 small, and it definitely sheds, and it definitely gets in with people, and it makes them sick. Yeah, absolutely.
So, what are your thoughts on the Deagle predictions?
I thought you might say that. I've got it right here. Let me just pull it up. Hold on. So, deal
Oh,
prediction
what a
population.
coincidence! We didn't discuss this beforehand. So,
Well, let's just look at United States. So, United Kingdom, 63.3 million people. They said in 2017. Right now, 14.5 people by the end of 2025. United States, they're looking at 316.4 million, and they reckon at the end of 2025, 99 million. And I think I definitely think they're right. I think, and it's not just. There's a lot of people like they reckon 75 to 80% of the population here took the bioweapon, and so that means that a lot of people are passing. I mean, 3,000 people a week, I work on, and I get reports and different things, and people come, when it's too late because this stuff grows through the body. It's you get nylon in your arteries, you get myocarditis, you get strokes, you get aneurysms, you name it, you get it. And it's dangerous stuff. And now since it's been so many years, people are getting into real trouble with it. So I believe the Deagle report, but don't forget that. Have a look at this. Let me just go through this because it's really interesting. So
but it hasn't been totally accurate yet, though, and we are soon at the end of 2025. I mean, but of course we do see a lot of people dying very sadly, and it also attacks the weakest link in your body, right?
it does, yeah, absolutely. Well, listen to this and see if it makes any sense. So look at the population since the 1500s. So in the 1500s, the population was 438 million. Okay. 1600, it's gone up by, 430, about 60 million to 500 million. 1700, 610 million. So it's gone up by 110. So it's gone from 50 to 110 million. That's a pretty big change. And then the 17 to 1800s, it's gone from 610 million to 1 billion. That's 400 million more. I mean, it's such a significant change. 18 to 1900, 1.6 billion. So that's 600 billion. And then 1900 to 2000, 6.144 billion. So it's gone from 1900 in 100 years. How does it do that? And the answer is it doesn't. It's impossible.
Why is it impossible? People love to have sex, don't they?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I've got to have sex a lot of times, create billions of kids, and and look at it. Over those 100 years, it doesn't. I mean, to me, it doesn't make sense. And then 2000 to 2024, 6.144 billion to 8.7 billion. Again, that's 2 billion more in 20 years. Where's these people coming from? Is there that many kids? I don't see them. So there's definitely. And the answer is that they're producing people in pods, but there's also solid holographic people. I mean, we call them NPCs. NPCs, non-player characters. But there's definitely holographic people here, solid, where you touch them and they feel, but they're checked out. And there's a lot of people who are born in pods now.
But we're all kind of holographic in structure, in nature, right? I mean, a sophisticated
all vibrational. Oh yeah, absolutely. But
in a way. So I mean, how can we determine if somebody is holographic and without a soul, or like not really a real person, but they seem real, and you can be with them, right? Even have sex with them.
Oh yeah, but for example, people in pods, what happens is that what people don't realize, you need a woman's womb to get a proper human soul because you need the God energy around it and all the things. So So what happens with the plastic pod? You get an AI draconian soul, which is like an AI shut down thing. So how do you tell these people? Look at their eyes. Their eyes are dead. They can't speak a monologue. They really struggle with reasoning. They're not proper people. They're a biological AI robotic system.
So are you
And
talking about are you talking about that they are growing clones or producing clones in laboratories? I mean,
millions of them.
without
Oh yeah,
souls, but with an AI soul. Is that what you're talking about?
that's correct. Yeah.
And then what? They
No,
put they unleash them on in the community, or what? I
yeah, they
mean,
grow
where?
them, put them in a community. They come from underneath many places like Epstein Island. They come from underneath the Disney. They've got massive, massive
But they have a
manufacturing sites.
backstory to tell, right? And they have photographs of their from their childhood or whatever.
Well, they don't because they're kept in pods, and then once they're born, they're groomed. So they really have no backstory when they're a child until they get of age, where then they're manufactured. Like for example, all these new people in a lot of people in the music industry are manufactured. And you can see that. I mean, it's a satanic industry, as you know, and it's just it's what it is. But hopefully, it's going to change.
Yeah,
But
hopefully
it doesn't
that's
make
going to
sense.
change. But I mean, why do you think? I mean, who is not a real person in the music industry? Do you think?
I think there's quite a few. I haven't thought about it, but I don't really pay attention to Hollywood, to be honest. But there is a number of people who are, like Beyonce, people like that. I think they're robotic people. And you can
So you
tell
don't
because
think
they are.
she's real? You don't think she's a real person who was just like, let's say, hijacked by the system and was well
Well,
put in.
some of them are, yeah. If you do a blood ritual and everything else, you're hijacked, you're abused, where they break your soul open. So there's elements of people like that. There's
Or maybe
elements of the
she's under
robotic.
MK Ultra mind control or something. That doesn't mean
Oh
she's
yeah,
robotic or a clone.
yeah, but even clones are still like it's a human body with an AI soul in. So it just depends. So I mean, some people have been bred for this. Some people have like I say, if they've been born in pods, they've got a problem. And the Greys, worked this out because when they're abducting people, they used to steal eggs and sperm and put them in their pods, and they realized that we're producing these human beings with no soul, no empathy, and everything else. So they actually changed their mind. So what they did then is they actually abducted women and seeded them for about 4 to 6 weeks. They put them back here, they monitored them. As soon as the soul had actually attached the fetus, they basically abducted them, took it out, then put it in a pod. So this human soul is bonded to that fetus. So that was a step they did. That's why they were taken off the planet. I think it was in 2017.
So do reptilian ETs have a soul, or are they like possessed by archons or other entities, or steered by AI?
Well, reptilians have their own type of soul. They're different beings than we are, but are they influenced by AI? Absolutely, but they're also influenced by power, greed, and all the things, like the reptilians, like the Anunnaki, the Draconians. They're all after this planet, and so they're doing their best to get hold of it. That's why we're in a massive spiritual war right now, and it's not over yet. But I mean, we've won in terms of I think people are awake enough, but because these beings can't stay in a high vibration place, and I think the planet itself is raising in vibration to the point where they'll have to leave, otherwise they'll perish because the energy is too high for them. So that's what's cleansing that. So it's interesting.
So what's the difference between an Anunnaki and a Draco reptilian?
They're from different places. Anunnaki actually live underneath the planet. Draconians actually are on Planet X, which is Nibiru, which is getting closer. That's why there's a lot more of them come to this planet. The Draconians are actually darker. They're very, very much more aggressive and darker. Anunnaki are more placid. And don't forget, not all reptilians are evil. There are good Anunnaki who want to actually redeem themselves and help humanity. So, people think, oh, all reptilians are evil. And they're really not. You've got the Greys, are they evil? Well, to me, if you're going to steal someone's body parts, that's not okay. And that's why they were swept off the planet. Because there's a very close call between violation and education. So, for example, So, you get in queue and, you and your Starseed family said, yeah, okay, volunteers. So I'll volunteer. Well, just have a look what happens down here. So yeah, you might get an attachment. These things go on, manipulation, MK Ultra, all these things. Oh, don't worry about it. I'm going down. I want to help, and then you get down here. You've got to learn to navigate that, but you've been shown it before you get down here. So it's not a violation, it's an education. But what happens if your government signs a contract with the Grey Reticular from Reticular because they've ruined their planet and says, you can steal any body parts you want out of these humans on this planet, in this country, and I'll sign a contract. Is that a violation of education? It's a violation because you have no free will. You have no ability to say no. I mean, you can do to them and they actually listen. But, if you're paralyzed, you're on their ship, the chances are they're going to take something out of you. That's a violation. So, yeah, it's a very close call between violation and education.
Some people say, a lot of people say in this field that the Greys are cloned bio robots.
Yeah, the biological robots, yeah.
And not
So they've
real,
got,
not with a soul, more like AI steered, and that the tall whites, the tall white grays, or whatever you call those, that they are more organic or something. That's at least what some people say. But the reptilians, you say, do have some kind of a soul or a soul, and are not steered by archons or AIs.
no, I mean, archons float through the second, third, and fourth dimension. They attach, and that's part of the covenant. By taking the bioweapon, it splices your DNA, therefore your soul lifts out the body because it's not compatible with the body, because the light body in your soul has disappeared. So that's why people, when they ingest this sort of thing, they become shut down, struggle to stay in their body and income on Archon. So they become shut down but aggressive at the same time. It's interesting for a lot of people.
So the reptilians could be possessed by archons, right? Because they feed on anxiety and angst and fear and hatred and all that.
They could, but I think they work together. I think the Archons work together with the Draconians and also the Anunnaki. I think they're all working together to try and take over the planet. I mean, one of the biggest things is they want to come up above the planet. And so that's why they want to try and block the sun out. And Gates and all these people have been trying to block the sun out with chemtrails and everything else. Yes, the chemtrails poison you. They want to reduce the population of the planet also. But their biggest thing is they want to reduce the oxygen so that these things are underneath. They don't breathe the same oxygen as we do. So if you reduce the oxygen, they can come on top. And that's something we really don't want.
So the Anunnaki is the Nephilim?
Nephilim, same thing, yeah. Anunnaki, Nephilim.
And they are reptilians, you say. Some people say that they're not reptilians, but you think they are.
Well, they are, but they can actually take human form. So it's interesting. Like the Queen of England was a Anunnaki reptilian, and she could actually shapeshift into human form. So that's why people say, well, it looks human, but the eyes always make the mistake of going back to reptilian. And sometimes, when they reform themselves, they don't get it right. So say you had a mole here or over here, it might be on the opposite side next time, and what's that mole? It's moved, and if people are paying attention, you can tell. But they can shapeshift into the form. When they look at you, you can take your form. And so you would wonder whether, what the heck am I doing here? There's two of me. And it's because they've, reformed themselves to the way you look. Is it exact? Probably not. But, it's pretty close.
So are all reptilians without empathy?
Not all of them, most of them. Yeah, most of them. I mean, the problem is, it's like anything, if you've got the head of the Draconians is Dracondio, and they rule very, very hard, like with Hitler and like with other people. And I think what happens is that these things are fearful, so they're submissive to the cause. While some of them are actually breaking away because they don't believe that this is not okay. I'm not doing this anymore. So some of the reptilians have actually redeemed themselves and actually helping humanity. So they're not all bad.
So talk about time travel and the possibility of changing the timelines for the better or maybe for the worse, which we've also heard that maybe they have done through this time travel apparatus, whatever they had. We've had lots of people that were part of the Montauk project and have been on other bases, and talk about the time travel chair and all of that, going to different times in history. But how could we go back on the timeline through time travel and change history for the better?
Can you go back in a timeline? You could, well, you can go back on a timeline, but for example, say Lucas, we went back, so we're on a timeline, and we go back, and we go to 1936, we see it, oh, he's over there. Let's go take him out. You can't. Why is that? Because his time has already happened. And that's why the Akashic Records stop changes in past timelines. You can change that timeline. You can change something that you're on, but not other people's timeline because it won't work.
Well, everything has happened, right? This has also...
That's right.
And the future has happened as well, right?
That's right. But when
But
you go
everything
back,
would change if we go back and change it. We could change it if we wanted to, couldn't we? But they don't want to because they want the outcome that we have.
yeah, they
now.
want the outcome. Yeah, but the Akashic Records also stops you because if you changed everything on other people's timelines that have already happened and you've gone back in time, that would change the whole space-time continuum. It would be a mess. The whole thing would change. So that's
A
why
lot of
they've locked
people
people.
probably wouldn't even be here if we had changed if we changed the timeline.
Oh no, no, no. So you can't change other people's timelines from your timeline when you go back in time. And the Akashic Records were actually, that was to do with the Melchizedek Beings. They put that in place to stop the space-time continuum from being destroyed. Otherwise, you can imagine it'd be a complete mess.
So talk about the Akashic records for a moment. You say that that was created also by the Melchizedek beings that you're part of. And what's the real purpose? Because we do hear that everything is registered within the Akashic records, and you can tap into it to get information or see what the whole thing is all about, past and future, I guess. But what's the real purpose then for it if we can change something for the better? And can we actually tap into the Akashic records and see the future and what's going to happen?
You can, well, what's interesting is this, so say the past, say you want to look in someone's Akashic Records of the past and past life. Yes, you can go back in that, and they've got one timeline they've been on. There's many timelines they could have been on, but the one time they've been on, you can actually go back and you can, watch that. And if you can read the Akashic Records, and then you can say, oh yeah, you were this in past life, you did that and that and that. But what happens when we come to right now? So, your timeline, in a minute or so, which is going to come very quickly, hasn't been recorded yet because you've got the choice of infinite timelines of the future. Like, for example, you can do Age of Truth TV. Oh, let's go on that timeline. It's a great timeline. But what happens if you say, well, do you know what? I want to rob a bank and I want to go to jail for a while. So you go on a very dark timeline and you go and rob a bank and suddenly you end up in jail. That's probably not a timeline anyone really wants. Or you can go and be a hairdresser, or you can go and be a swimmer. You can do anything. It's infinite in the future timelines, and that's up to us. And my impression is I would encourage people to find what their gift is, whether it's singing, whether it's acting, whether it's painting, whether it's growing food, whether it's doing healing. Find your timeline. Find your God gift, and it's within you. And very often you can find that out. If you connect to your starseed family, they will help you discover that. And I discovered mine in Belize. They were showing me past life that, oh wow, it was honestly like a hologram in the room. When I went back, after being on the Mayan temple, I was like really wired and watching this movie play out about this is your time, this is what you did in that lifetime, da da da. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. And I was up all night watching it. It was literally just like a holographic movie. And from that, I decided, well, I think I'm meant to be doing the same thing as I did then. And really important. So what I did then is just dedicated my life to healing. And I love it. Service to others. I do as much as I can for as many people as I can. And I'd encourage everyone to do that because it's your divine timeline. Your gift is your divine timeline. If you get on that, you'll always be blessed. You'll always be excited about the future. You'll never want to do anything else. And that to me is key. It's absolutely key.
So just before I ask you a question about diseases and healing, and you work with that, and it's important to address that as well, then please talk about angels versus ETs, because a lot of Christians, they believe that ETs are angels or vice versa. I don't know which way it is. Well, which way is it?
Well, the interesting thing is you've got angels, you've got archangels. So, I mean, extraterrestrials, all these archangels things, they've come from somewhere that's actually extraterrestrial. But what makes an angel, for example? Well, it's the extraterrestrial beings who have achieved that unconditional love. You know, they're not, no judgment. They've evolved enough that they're completely unconditional love without judgment. And that to me is an angel, where they're just there to help you. They don't want anything for it. They love you, you know, and they're available. Now, archangels are a little bit different because they're the same kind of races, but what's happened is they've evolved. So they've got a lot more wisdom than just a standard angelic being. I mean, say you got off this planet and say, yeah, you've reached angel status. You're unconditional loving and that, but maybe you haven't got the wisdom. Like, for example, look at the Archangel, you know, Michael, for example, ancient Palladium. And he's there for protection, courage, and that sort of thing. Gabriel, communication, message, creativity from Sirius. Michael's a Palladium. Raphael, Andromeda, you know, healing, harmony, balance. You got Uriel, which is wisdom, insight, enlightenment, you know, and the rest of them. Jophiel, beauty, creativity, positive thoughts, but they're all evolved, you know, Ariel, you know, Lyran. So they've all come from
So they're
different
all
places.
from different star systems, and they're all ETs from those planetary systems. You remember the Pleiadians, Lyrans, and
Yeah,
Andromedans, and all
Andromedans.
of that.
But
Oh,
but
really?
what they are is really, really evolved beings. So they're ancient souls. They've been through so much. They understand it. They get it. And I think what's happened is that, you know, they can really help you. Like Archangel Michael, he's appeared to me a number of times because he's very close to because that being. So is the Arcturians, of course. And you know, we're all here doing the same work. And so,
But a lot of people feel that now they've communicated or gotten some help from Michael or Gabriel and all of that. But I mean, they must be really busy if they have to serve everybody.
well, don't forget the higher self can be in different places. I mean, you know, their lower self can be down, and of course, people can't normally see these, you know, archangels or angelic beings. Some people can. I can see through the veil. So when they turn up, like Mother Mary turns up, oh, you're here. You know, same with Archangel Michael, same with Gabriel. These people have been to see me a number of times because of the work we're doing. The pyramids, they're all aware of it. But I think, you know, you have to be very cautious that if someone's doing a reading for you, for example, what happens if you get, you know, you connect into the angelic realm, then a big old Anunnaki stands in between the channel and starts interfering. Now, the thing is about these reptilians is they're very, what I call cheeky. They will give you three truths and one lie. So, for example, if you're having a reading and you Lucas, I say, wow, Lucas, you know, you're doing a podcast, you do singing, you do this, and then they'll say, but Lucas, you should be in France. And I see this like red house, pink roof, green doors or green driveway or something. You think, what? You know, what are you on about? You know, and then you walk away. That's on your mind all the time. And eventually, most people would go to France. They'd find that extreme house. They'd buy it and say, oh, yeah, that person was right, when they're not, because the channel's been interfered with. And I always encourage people that if you get in a reading, you know, ask the channel, the person who's channeling, ask the off-planet beings they're channeling, are you of God? If you don't get an answer, then they're not. Because all Gabriel and, you know, Michael and Uriel, they will all say, yes, I am of God. So you'll know they're who they say they are.
They can be deceivers and liars and just
Oh,
pretend,
yeah.
maybe shapeshift to look like an archangel or something like that, or Jesus or your grandmother was being channeled through that
Absolutely, they
clairvoyant
can shape.
or whoever you're
Yeah,
going
so you got
to.
it. The biggest thing that anyone's got is their first discernment. Like, is this real? And if it's not, then you need to go with your gut, because that's the only truth that any of us ever have, is our first intuitive or gut feeling like, nah, this feels off. And if it feels off, it's off, so always remember that. It's really important.
Mhm. So diseases, and you work with this, and you are a holistic medical advisor, and you advise a lot of people. All of the recent pandemics and all of that, they were probably manufactured by humans, right? But I mean, can, for example, cancer be cured, and can everything be cured?
Everything can be cured, yeah. A lot of it's to do with manufactured parasites, whether it's pathogens, all different types of parasitic or stealth pathogens. And I think these were all manufactured. If you look at the dates, um, I think, let me just check the dates, because I think this is really important, if that's okay. Let me just, so the dates are, let's have a look. So, yeah, so when was, so if you look at Agent Orange was first manufactured uh, in, first manufactured in 1960s. 65, something like that, when it entered, US through the Vietnam War. Then you got the Lyme disease, 75. You got AIDS, 81, and Morgellons, 2002. Now, Morgellons is an evil disease because it's basically nano with actually Borrelia, which is the stealth pathogen Lyme bound to it, and particle and other things like nylons, silicates, everything else. So you get all this stuff growing through your skin. And what they've done with these, latest ingestions, so to speak, is they've added all this stuff and more, and it's making people really, really sick.
In what way can you help people? And when you offer your services, how can people go to you and find, let's say, well, do you offer a cure, or what do you offer?
Well, it's illegal to say cure, but we can strip, for example, I mean, when people come, I assess what's happening. Like if you've got, what's the primary cause of cancer? Emotion. Secondary cause is, parasites like pathogens or anything like that. Mutates in the cell, turn into tumor. So the tumor encases all those pathogens and things and mutation to try and not transfer it into the body. So what we do is, so we've got to get rid of the primary cause, which is emotion. Secondary cause, we have a particular energy called space-time continuum. It breaks the molecular structure of the tumor down to around the body. So that's great, but the getting rid of the pathogens, which is the secondary cause, I mean, the tumor's a symptom. So the secondary cause, what we tend to do is put people on our protocol, which is a 36-week program. What it does is we split your timeline and we separate your timeline. So put you on a path of divine alignment, complete wellness, where all the pathogens, stealth pathogens, nano, everything is eradicated on that timeline. On the other timeline, we separate all the pathogens, stealth pathogens, viral, fungal, bacterial, parasite, whatever, and lock it on a timeline to sun. So as time goes on, it strips out the body through the skin, through the... Once we've done about 18 weeks of that and your vibration's high enough, because your DNA has been changed by these new bioweapons, what we do is invoke a DNA change. So they go in the cell where life began, repair all the chromosomes, connect all the helixes together, and reset the DNA of that cell back to the blueprint in the Akashic records. Then the cells around it. So as it goes on, it resets your DNA. That takes about 18 to 20 weeks. So after the program, your DNA is completely compatible with your soul. So your soul comes back in.
Well, can you measure that? Is there a way to actually prove that this has been that you're now totally different and you're back to your original self, so to speak?
Oh yeah, because people do live blood analysis. They've done like they had myocarditis. It's not myocarditis per se. It's actually nano in the heart muscle. And the sad thing is when they scan you, they can't see it. And they say, well, there's nothing wrong with your heart. There is. It's just 10 to the minus 9 small, and you're not seeing it on your scanner. If you get a electron microscope, you can see it then. But the myocarditis is gone. The nylon, the arteries, we break that down. That's gone. And we get back, people can tell because they feel like, wow, I feel amazing again, instead of checked out and sick. So yeah, it really does work. It's a big
Sounds
program.
absolutely incredible. And if people want to reach you to acquire your services, how can they do so?
Yeah, if you go to globalenlightenmentproject.com, and yeah, we're on there. It's part of the Christopher Macklin Ministries, but it's the in quotes, they call it a fictitious name here, which is like a name under under the ministry. And yeah, come and get some healing. I do twice a week. I do a healing for everybody, and I try and cover many things, not all everything, but it means everyone's got healing. It's by donation. Come on, if you don't want to make a donation, you don't have to. And just come on. And it's Thursday, 5 p.m. Central Time, Saturday, 11 a.m. Central Time, or just email through the website, globalenlightenedbyheart.com. If you're interested in getting this jab out your body or anything else, then feel free. We're here for you. Bless your hearts.
That's wonderful and fascinating. In our remaining moments, what would you like to share, or if you have something to share that we haven't covered today, or your best possible message for people watching this?
I would really encourage them to. It's a very difficult world to live in, and so I would encourage you. It's fractionated all over. There's families are fractured. Bifurcated. Everything. Race, religion. Whatever. So I'd really encourage people. Don't rise to that. Really work on yourself, and always manage your thoughts. It took me a few months. By managing every thought. I think, oh. Why I haven't, well, let's back up, hang on a sec. So that happened for a reason. Wow, what a blessing. So what I'm going to do is look positively, like, thank you, God, for the blessing of identifying that. And now I'm moving forward. Always turn negative into positive thoughts, and always look back on your life and don't think, God, I never want to do this lifetime again. Look at all the blessings, because it doesn't matter how bad it is. And believe you me, being on the street, being homeless, no food, I'm not feeling sorry for myself, because I don't. But what a blessing that was, because it's really taught me just the smallest thing. Even just having that plate of food on the table is massive, because there's so many people who don't. So always live in gratitude and, and surrender to, in quotes, Prime Creator, God, Goddess, Prime Creator, whatever you want to call God. I think it's important.
Gratitude is the key, and it's a wonderful message. And it was so nice to have you on again, and we're looking forward to having you back at some time. And I just want to thank you so much for being on
Oh, thanks, Lucas. Thanks for having me. Bless your heart. And lots of love for you guys.
Thank you. It was nice.
Well, hopefully we'll carry on. Oh, thanks for the interview. You ask great questions, actually. I love it. Bless your heart.
Thank you so much. That's so nice. It's always nice to see you, and I look forward to seeing you again, and we'll talk some more, right?
Oh, thanks, Lucas. Thanks for having me on. God bless you. Bless you.
Thank you so much to Dr. Christopher Macklin, and thanks to all of you for watching Age of Truth TV. You can support us by clicking onto our website, ageoftruth.tv. And please like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell for notifications. You can sign up for our newsletter on our website, ageoftruth.tv as well. Please also subscribe to our alternative channels on BitChute and Brighteon. Your support is greatly appreciated and very needed. And on behalf of the Age of Truth TV team, we thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.